welcome everyone. I'm Steve Wagaman, president of the Chamber Music Society of Detroit, and I'm thrilled to be here with my good friend, Michelle Cann, who is performing a recital for us at Shaver Music Recital Hall on Friday, November 5th at 8 p.m. Michelle, it is so good to see you.
It's great to be here, and I'm especially excited to make another visit to Detroit soon.
Yeah, well, you know, I've been seeing a lot of you lately. In fact, our online audiences heard you play a beautiful recital for us in July. Of course, that was filmed and prepared in Philadelphia at the Curtis Institute of Music, where you are now on the faculty. But I remember it was one of the highlights of the summer for us. What have you been up to since then besides, well, what have you been up to since then?
Besides trying to practice, right?
I sort of know the answer to some of that, but from your perspective.
No, absolutely. No, it's, you know, I've been very grateful for opportunities that have opened up for me this year, especially 2021. It has really been difficult, I think, you know, for all musicians, really everyone in the country, but definitely for musicians to not be able to do what makes us tick, which is to perform, right? I can tell you that I appreciate that the Camera Music concert last summer was a highlight for you and your audiences, but I can tell you personally, it was a huge, huge highlight for me. And more specifically, it was encouraging and motivating. The timing of that concert and the engagement of having that recorded at Curtis, I had not played in a space larger than the room you see right now. I had not played in a space larger than this since, of course, everything shut down in mid-March. And when you're used to being on the road, when you're used to playing for an audience in a hall, you almost don't even realize just how much you miss it until you get to do it. That performance, that recording, it really motivated me moving forward for the rest of 2020, because I had really been struggling up until this point very much to really figure out what my purpose was. It was so jarring for everyone to have part of, like, a huge part of your life and career and be completely cut off. So by doing that concert, I just had, you know, hope for the future, as one would say, and say, okay, even though I cannot do as much concertizing as I'm used to right now, even, you know, this little bit that I did by doing the concert at Curtis, it just reminded me, well, things will open up again. Opportunities will happen. So this is the time to practice, prepare, and look to the future. So it definitely was a turning point, and I wanted to share that with you. After that point, you know, as I got into the fall, and I was working, and I started to exercise more. You know, there was the we all started to do a little bit better.
This interview is about music, Michelle.
I mean, I'm just saying, we're all trying to get, you know, do good things, right? And I was feeling better about myself. And it was right around, you know, a certain amount of months, I guess, after that, that I was asked to join the faculty at Curtis, which was such an honor and a surprise. It wasn't something that I had applied for. I was considered and asked to join. So
and you actually have a chair that's named after your former teacher there.
No, she was not my former teacher, but she was a former teacher and a mentor to me. Absolutely. Right. Eleanor Sokoloff. Yes. I mean, what a legend for Curtis. So again, those are huge, big shoes to walk in. And again, you know, hearing this news, knowing that I would be sitting in this chaired position, added to this motivation for the future. And so absolutely, it's just, you know, I've been working on new pieces by Florence Price, especially. I was really excited to have one of my first significant gigs in 2021, or really two in the month of January, included playing with the Philadelphia Orchestra and recording on their digital stage the Florence Price Piano Concerto, which is a piece that's very dear to my heart. And another wonderful opportunity was with the New World Symphony, members of the New World Symphony, recording the Florence Price Piano Quintet in A minor. And so getting ready to start off 2021 in that way was a pretty great way to start off the year. And from there, you know, for all of us.
Tell me about it. You've been one busy gal. And I want to share with everyone, so you don't have to, that one of the highlights of my summer 21 was the opportunity to go down to the Blossom Music Center and to hear Michelle Cann in her debut with the Cleveland Orchestra in front of about 10,000 people. And it was only one of two nights. Of course, they have a big attendance on the 4th of July weekend because everybody comes to see the fireworks. But I think a lot of people also came to hear Michelle Cann. And it was just a glorious performance. Certainly equal to anything I've heard on that stage there, and you know, what a thrill to, you know, in summer 2020 we're squeezing you into the camera music program, and the next summer you're making a debut with the Cleveland Orchestra.
And you are one of the people I can thank for, you know, for camera music help set the stage, as one would say. But no, absolutely, that performance, I remember the way it felt, because I didn't know what the audience was going to look like. I had no idea. I was backstage getting ready to come out to perform the concerto at Blossom, and what went through my head, and I looked at a little, you know, some videos later, and you really can't tell what's going through my head. But what actually was going through my head was, oh my goodness, I've never played in front of this many people, and I simply haven't, COVID or not.
Many people haven't. Many people who grace some pretty famous concert stages haven't. 10,000 people. That's like,
I know. It was a sea of people. And of course, I don't know the number. I just see more than I've ever seen. And I remember this for a split second. What went through my head is, oh my goodness, I have been playing for no one to maybe 10 people for about a year. That's been my audience. And then now I have about 10,000. So we're going from 10 to 10,000, no big deal. And then, oh, by the way, it's also the debut with the Cleveland Orchestra. So it was just this moment of pressure that I had to brush aside and say, this is just like anything else. And I'm playing a piece I love to play. And I want to, you know, this is 10,000 new fans of Florence Price.
Right. Well, and 10,000 new fans of you. I think one of the things that I love about the Cleveland Orchestra is how they play with such passion and with such love of every moment. And they share that in common with you. And the collaboration was a perfect fit from the very beginning.
Thank you. It really was good.
No, it's more of the same. And of course, you're playing with the Detroit Symphony next spring, also the Florence Price Concerto, and that's going to be exciting. But let's talk a little bit about the music you're doing on this concert. Of course, one of the great centerpieces that's on it, and the one repeat from your camera music concert that we feel really good about is the Florence Price Sonata. In 3 movements. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Florence Price Sonata was written around the same time as her piano concerto and her first symphony. And that, one exciting part of that too, being that I'm in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Orchestra just released her symphonies 1 and 3 with the Deutsche Grammophon. So definitely check those out as well, because this is very huge. She wrote the symphony and again, the piano sonata, and submitted them to a piano competition. This was in the early 1930s called the Wanamaker Music Competition. She won top prizes in both categories for the symphony and for the piano sonata. And, first prize wins. And then her symphony was premiered by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, which was huge. And from there, it definitely put her more on the map. So that was very significant time for her. And she, not long before that, just moved to Chicago. So this just really opened things up for her. And again, her piano sonata was considered, equally as amazing, which I have to agree with. So the piano sonata, it really explores what I think are all the different sides of her personality and her interest and love of various types of music. And in her first movement of the piano sonata, you hear what is very clearly romantic connections to the Romantic period is the best way to put that. And completely inspired by big composers. I mean, you absolutely hear Dvorak, you'll hear what sounds like Rachmaninoff with big octaves at times. And, even Tchaikovsky. I just feel that I hear moments from all of these composers that I love and that she loved. At the same time, completely seeped within this romantic backdrop is references to music of Black America. And, at that time, that definitely included spirituals, that included, gospel and religious music. It included dances that were the Juba dance she uses a lot. And that that was from Africa, brought by slaves. It was popularized in the South. And it was a dance that she knew growing up in Little Rock, Arkansas. So this isn't her music, so you hear folk music, folk tunes constantly in this backdrop of romantic, soup. It's not the best way to put it, but it sort of seems that way because it really all just mixes together in a really pleasant way. That into her second movement, and most of her slow movements have complete connection to the spiritual.
Which is one of the loveliest openings I've ever heard. What a piece that is.
My favorite, one of the most beautiful things I'm not biased. It absolutely is. One of the most beautiful pieces of music out there. If you come for nothing else, come for the second movement of her piano sonata because it is gorgeous. And the third movement is really a rondo, but you hear again references, which she actually does pretty geniusly in the third movement. Is she takes motives from first and second movement and kind of gets around with that the third movement a lot. So at any rate, it's an amazing piece, and I think it's a really great introduction to Florence Price if you are just getting to know her or you haven't listened to all her music. This piano sonata really shows you her style, her compositional style, and you can use that as a basis that, connects to all the other genres, for orchestra, voice, strings, whatever. She wrote for so many different instrumentations. It's a wonderful basis for that.
Yeah. Well, and when we were, when you and I were talking about this program, we talked about the pairings with it. Mm-hmm. And you suggested and opted for two composers, Brahms and Debussy, that are sort of those roots exist in Florence Price, and tell us about those pieces and in what way are they linked?
Absolutely. So my inspiration simply just had to do with Florence Price's sound world. And I think what I feel a lot of her inspiration comes from. So as I mentioned, the Romantic period, and I mentioned a lot of composers. I didn't mention Brahms, but I should have, because I feel that the way that he expresses himself in his writing and the depth that I would say a lot of his melodies are so soulful. You'll hear in this program the Brahms Ballade, and that is actually extremely soulful and nostalgic in certain ways. And that is such a wonderful way to describe Florence Price, which is soulful and nostalgic. You know, even with everything else that she does, you feel that she is singing from within herself and putting that on the page. And that's in every way how I feel about Brahms' writing. And also that as these things happen, when you're trying to figure out a program and be thoughtful about what may connect and for the audience, another composer that I have been exploring lately is Clara Schumann. And Clara Schumann was a very, very close friend to Brahms. And of course, Clara Schumann was married to Robert Schumann. And when Robert Schumann was institutionalized, they were even closer. I mean, he was a huge support to her and inspiration. And quite honestly, that went both ways. One of the pieces on the program, the Variations on a Theme by Robert Schumann, Clara wrote that really for her husband as a birthday present. And at this time, he was actually already institutionalized. And when Brahms heard, apparently, Brahms was the first to hear her composition. Presumably, she played it for him. But when he heard this, he was so inspired and wrote his Opus 9 Variations on the same theme. Of course, he approached it differently, but he was inspired by what Clara did. And I think it was a year later that he wrote it. So I think it's really quite beautiful. And you see this, you know, absolutely personal connection and how each of them had a love for music and in this case Robert and put this on the page. So in so many ways it's a love story, and for Florence Price all I feel is love in her writing. So I think they just really all connect in a way that's very it's something that I think when you hear this program it will connect to the deepest part of you. That's what I want from it. And then Debussy might seem, okay, well, how is Debussy related? Well, actually, I think Debussy is completely related in the sense that Debussy, the way, and in this Image, of course, the approach is different, but it's all about colors and feelings. And I feel that with Debussy's music in general, but especially with his Image Book 1, that the music, literally the chords themselves, the harmonies affect us physically. When I play certain harmonies, you feel one emotion, and I may change, and that emotion will change within you. There's no connection to you know, words or specific. I mean, he gives you hints of images, but ultimately it's your imagination, which can really go wherever you want it to go. And again, feeling that connection to human nature and emotion, but putting it on the page in an entirely different way. That's what Debussy does. And so if I would say all of these composers kind of have that in common.
Well, it's a beautifully crafted program. It begins with a piece by Clara Schumann, the four-piece Fugitive, and then the Brahms Ballade, and then another piece by Clara Schumann, the Variations you mentioned, and then we have the Florence Price Sonata. And so you have kind of the Germanic tradition on the first half, and then of course Florence Price's command of that was unequaled. I mean, just amazingly adept composer. And then after intermission, you play this totally different sound world of Claude Debussy, and then you finish with another piece of Florence Price, which maybe ventures more in that direction than the sonata. Tell us about the fantasy.
So Florence Price wrote 4 different fantasies of various lengths. This is one of the longer ones. And so she does something very unique that she hasn't or doesn't do very often in her other works, which is that she quotes specifically a spiritual that was well known. Most of the time, and we talked about the second movement of her piano sonata, she just quotes, she writes in the style of a spiritual. Sorry, that was the point I was making, that it is not quoting a spiritual at all, but it completely fits. You could put words to the second movement of the sonata. But in this piece, she uses one that's known, it's called Sinner, Please Don't Let This Harvest Pass.
Sinner, please don't let this harvest pass.
Yeah, sinner, please don't let this harvest pass. And this spiritual, which is a powerful song. I remember looking it up and listening to the entire song, but she does this very fantasy-like intro. So again, it's a fantasy. So you hear sort of the interludes between the theme and the song are very imaginative and kind of without structure, which is what you expect in a fantasy. But then she goes into, after her intro, into this completely quoting, verbatim, the sinner, please don't let this harvest pass. And what's really amazing is that this fantasy takes on, in a way, a variation approach, because I do have the Clara Schumann variations. You feel that in here, because she does continue to use this theme and but kind of vary the music around it. But then in the middle, she changes course and you hear this other beautiful melody, and seemingly, as far as I could find, no connection to any known spiritual. So she couldn't help herself. This was something she did very well and does often, which again, writes in the style of a spiritual, but is not actually connected to anything that's been written. And so in one piece, she uses both of those techniques.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it promises to be just this amazing, amazing program. And I guess one of the things I really appreciate about you is you're so thoughtful. Not just in your playing, but also in what you decide to play. So I think we're about out of time, but Michelle, we are so much looking forward to this performance, and audiences will be able to hear it in person. A limited number. The hall it doesn't seat 10,000 people.
Oh, no. Darn.
But then we'll also have it available online, and information on that, of course, is at our website, cmsdetroit.org, or cameramusic.org, which is our webcasting platform. But Michelle, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you really soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.